Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Kyle Juice Michalski, Quinten Krzysko, Sunny Verma, and the one and only Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
And we are back. We watched the Bears today. We watched the Bears lose to the Patriots today. And I don't know about you, Sonny. I'm battling with how I forgive this franchise, this organization, for doing this again. For doing this to a better QB prospect. Just 3 years after doing it to the last guy. 3-4 years after doing it to the last guy, of just like, here we are over and over and over. It feels like time is a flat circle and we are just stuck in it. But now that we have the optimism out of the way, my name is Quinten Krzysko. I am joined by Sunny Verma. We are Bears on Tap. Sunny, how are you doing this evening?
I've been better, Q. I feel like we could have taken this week off. Let's just replay last week's episode, because I feel like we're going to just kind of be belaboring the same points. It's just, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I think you mentioned, like, just the energy is out. Like, it's such a deflating feeling. A lot of people stopped watching that second half. I knew about a dozen people at the game, and they all told me that halfway through the fourth quarter, most of that stadium was gone.
Why would they stay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. And, just thinking back to our season preview episode, and we were talking about how optimistic we were, like how energized we were, and like how we've never had players at skill positions like we do this year. And now those very same guys have gone 8 quarters without scoring a single touchdown. Like, what are we doing here, Q?
First time since they were playing in Champaign-Urbana? 04? Right? They were the 04 season. That was the Champaign-Urbana year, right? This is the first time they've gone that long without scoring an offensive touchdown since they had Chad Hutchinson and Craig Krenzel and Rex Grossman and Jonathan Quinn each starting 3 games, and like 1 or 2 of those guys started 4. It didn't matter. You had a rotating door. Like, that's the type of offense you were talking about. You weren't talking about a really strong rookie quarterback prospect with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Cole Kmet. Like, I am baffled how Shane Waldron is putting out this little. How this is this bad. And like, we could sit here and say, well, it's got to be the quarterback then. I don't think it is, because half the time when he's taking a sack on the replay, I'm looking at it, he has nowhere to throw it.
I mean, I think some of it's on the quarterback. I got to rewatch. I don't know what I'm doing, in the sense where I made myself rewatch some of the game right before we recorded here. And like, there's some dump off passes that he was looking down the field on, where he just kind of missed Swift. But I mean, I think that's just kind of piles on to what the mood is. It's like a generational prospect as a quarterback who, I talked about this season, like, priority number 1 is to, have Caleb develop, and let's see if we can make the playoffs. And then it started switching to, okay, it doesn't look like we're making the playoffs, but let's just, as long as Caleb continues to positive momentum and we see him develop into, one day being the type that can lead you to a Super Bowl, okay, fine, I'll be content with that. I'll be honest, the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty discouraged even on the Caleb front. It's just, again, I'm not saying it's necessarily his fault, but he has not played well. And, a lot of these sacks, granted, of course, it's a historically bad offensive line that we're putting out there, but he's got to know that. And so that's why at that point, he's got to see, if the read isn't there, you just got to throw it away. Like, making plays, you're not able to make plays right now. And he's missing not even the long throws anymore, Q. Like, he missed some easy, 8 to 12 yard throws to one to Cole Kmet and one to DJ Moore today, like when the guys were wide open. And that's why, like, it's one of those where if the team plays poorly, but Caleb is playing well, I can see the positive in that. But right now, I don't see either.
This is one of the things that, because I think you're right, there is some blame on Caleb. I'm hesitant to put too much on him because in my mind, you need to be able to get this trio of receivers plus the tight end you have. You need to create first read openings. You just do. And I'm not seeing that right now. But you're right. There are check down opportunities that he might be missing because he's over eager to go make a play. But to me, like, this was a Shane Waldron game, right? This was the final Shane Waldron game in my mind of you need to show something here. You need to show an ability to find answers that work within your offense for the personnel that you have. And he has blatantly not been able to do that. Today, they scored 3 freaking points against, I said in the pregame, I like the Patriots defense, but they were down a lot of bodies. Like, they still had some really good players out there, but at the same time, they shouldn't be holding you to only 3 points. And that's just, it's disgusting. And I'm at this point where it's just like, I thought Shane Waldron was the safe hire. We all did, right? Like, that was a big talking point when he got hired. It seemed like, to me, the lowest risk guy, right? Maybe not the most exciting guy, but the lowest risk. And we were all just blatantly wrong. I think Pete Carroll had a lot to do. Had a lot to say within that Seattle offense at this point. I mean, this is going back to like a year or two ago. I was thinking about when Russ kind of tanked. It was like, Pete knew about Russ. Pete also seemed to know about Geno and probably helped Geno along in his career quite a bit in that time he was there in Seattle. And Pete Carroll clearly had Shane Waldron on a short leash. That's the only logic that I can come up with here.
Yeah, disastrous. There's only one way to describe this hiring of the offensive coordinator. And, this is one of those where, like, I mean, maybe we can discuss this. Like, what's the minimum action that the Bears can do tomorrow that you'll be not necessarily satisfied with, but what's the bare minimum that you're okay with?
None of it. I mean, they're not going to fire Flus tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's it. Last week, we sat on this show going over like, well, if you fire him, what does that mean? Like, unless he's actually totally lost the locker room, is it going to make any difference anywhere? And it's like, I think he's totally lost the locker room. I think the only way this team gets results from here on out is by firing Eberflus. But I don't think they'll do that. I think, maybe Waldron is scapegoated here. Maybe we talked some about Chris Morgan last week. But, like, when I hear that in the post game, like when the reporters got access to the locker room, most of the starters were already gone. That's pretty damn, like, that's not a team anymore. That's not guys having each other's backs. That's not like that. That is, I'm getting out of here, and whoever's left, they can clean this up because I'm not doing it. Like, I think it was Nick Moriano who said, like, Jalen Johnson was gone. Jalen Johnson is never gone for a microphone. Like, that's not good in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, even Eberflus's like post-game press conference, he talked about the outside noise that the players in the locker room would certainly hear. And even there, like, there was nothing inspiring about it, right? Like, I'm not necessarily a body language guy. I think it's kind of, people get overworked about that kind of stuff. But today, every time they panned over to that locker or the sideline, like, there wasn't one guy that I saw that at least, come on, guys, let's go. Let's get it. Let's turn things around. We got this. We got this. There's just nobody there who was really providing that sort of leadership and, I don't know, excitement. It was more of a dejected look by, again, everybody. There's plenty of tweets on my timeline. I can't confirm myself, but like Waldron and Caleb Williams, like, barely even speaking to each other all game long. And it's just like, if that's where we're at now, and we're halfway through the season, we still have halfway to go. It's not like there's only 2 or 3 games left, right? So it's like, this is absolutely the worst case scenario for what this season could have been. Because, again, we're not a playoff team. We might be the worst team in the NFL at this point. And our rookie quarterback, who we're pinning all our future on, is regressing. And, again, what we're scared of is that we don't want him to start learning bad habits or, checking out mentally in his first year. And it's, again, he's running for his life every time they snap the ball. I think he got sacked, 8 times today? Was it 9 times? Something along that. I stopped counting. And, if I don't know, I'm not sure what else to say. It's just one of those.
Well, that's the disconnect to me. It's like you knew you were starting all backups today on the O-line. You knew it was going to be ugly there. And you couldn't find answers. Like, that's coaching to me. That's Sean McVay finds answers. Kyle Shanahan finds answers. Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, everyone in your division can find answers in these situations except for you. That's a problem. Like, and I'm not saying their offensive lines were necessarily as bad, but I feel like every time that the Bears step on the field, there are moments of pure ineptitude along the offensive line. And it shouldn't be that way. It just shouldn't. It's not about the player talent at that point. It's about what they're being asked to do, what they're being coached to do, how they're learning stuff. It's something is just wrong with it.
I'm trying to think to myself. I agree with you. No way they make a major coaching staff move tomorrow. Eberflus is going to be coached probably for the rest of the season. Maybe they take away the play calling duties from Waldron. I know that someone asked Eberflus in the post-game press conference today, and he said he's actually open to it this week as opposed to saying he wasn't going to do it last week. So maybe that's one change. Is it going to appease fans? No. But there's just no way they can sit back and do nothing this week. I mean, Green Bay's coming to town. Each and every one of us Bears fans is dreading what next Sunday is going to look like. I feel like they got to do something.
I wish I could just get in George's head here. George McCaskey's head to be like, sometimes you look at the New Orleans Saints today. A lot of times, actually, can the head coach team goes and wins a game. You want to beat the Packers, that's probably your best chance, because I don't think trotting out Matt Eberflus another week is going to beat the Packers, and we know how much the McCaskeys care about that.
Just we couldn't beat the Patriots, man.
No, we couldn't. But I mean, the Saints they're bad. Like, I'm not saying it would happen, but I'm saying if you're thinking your best chance to beat the Packers is hanging on to Matt Eberflus for another week, you think you got another thing coming.
The spread is 6.5, which I think is an easy bet on the Packers. Yeah. We can't even score touchdowns. No. We can't score points. I said it on last week's show, or I think Tuesday's show, when the spread was the Bears minus 6.5 for this game. And I was like, there's no way I'm giving any other team 6.5 points. I don't care if New England's bad. 19 points, it's like, I don't know. What were the positives to this game? Like, the defense played okay. Giving up 19 points,
Were there any positives?
I'm doing my best.
The Patriots O-line was down worse than the Bears. You still gave up 19 points. Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic, but like the Patriots were starting pure like street guys on their O-line. Again, I'm sitting here scratching my head going, why does the Bears version of this look so bad when it shouldn't? Like the Patriots O-line didn't look good, but it looked better than the Bears.
Unfortunately, you had to bring in Kramer to play offensive line, and we've talked about him before. He's just not capable of doing it. I don't know. You know what? I'm kind of curious. Okay, yeah, we can answer this question. Joey says, sorry, just jumping in here. So let me know if you already said this. If they can Flus, who do you make the interim? I would not want it to be Waldron.
I'm going special teams coordinator, Richard Hightower. I think that's the clear choice because you want Washington to keep coordinating the defense, and you want whoever is going to be play calling to. I mean, if Waldron is still there, then Waldron stays play caller. I guess. Personally, I'd take that away from him and give it to. I think it's Brown behind him, the pass game coordinator, just to shake things up. But to me, Hightower is the clear answer.
Well, see, the problem is there is no clear answer, right? Like, as you said, like normally, yeah, you go to the offensive coordinator, but he's the guy that Bears fans are more angry than at Waldron than I feel like they are at Eberflus. And so there's no way you can essentially promote Waldron and give him an opportunity to be a head coach. You can't reward this type of season that he's having. So, yeah, I mean, the special teams guy, I mean, that makes sense, as much sense as, anything's going to make. But again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Like, this is also the fault of Ryan Poles. It's like we don't necessarily have a guy who all of us are clamoring for. Like that, oh, this guy makes sense. This guy makes sense. And when we have Eberflus, who most of the fan base was 50-50 on just coming into this year, I think most of us would have been okay if they moved on from him. To not have a guy that you're already not confident in as a head coach. And maybe Ryan Poles is confident in Eberflus as a head coach. And obviously it is. Well, then now I'm looking at you, Ryan Poles, because you are very, very wrong about this one. And the fact that you continue to be loyal to him makes me reevaluate how high and how loyal I should be to you. Because if you're getting that wrong, then I don't know if you're going to be the guy. Thank you for that amazing home run history-making trade that you made, but you've done nothing with it since.
It's like I said all of last year when I was like they need to move on from Poles and Eberflus. It's not fair, but it's the thing. I thought it was the thing to do just because it's the best thing for the rookie quarterback, whoever that was going to be, to just clean slate, tie everyone together from the start. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone's together. There's no question of after year 1, year 2, is this guy still loyal to this guy? Is this guy still loyal to the quarterback? Like, is it some weird triangle thing going on? Like, no, your GM drafted the quarterback and hired the head coach. I mean, truly, I don't think Poles can be fired. I don't, because then you start to enter the territory of, well, this GM didn't draft Caleb. We don't even know if this GM liked Caleb. In the interview, he's probably going to say like Caleb because he wants the damn job. But we don't know if he actually thought Caleb was QB1 in that class. I would think that he would, just because it seemed fairly consensus. And from my eyes, it was the obvious choice. But like, you don't know that. So then you don't know how loyal he is to his new quarterback. Does he want to get his new guy in there? So it's like, I think Poles has to be safe for that standpoint alone.
Yeah, I agree, as long as he makes a move on the coaching side. I don't care, Brad Biggs with, talking about how Eberflus might actually have 1 extra year on his contract. It doesn't matter. You have sometimes if you are if you want to be taken seriously in the world of the NFL, in professional sports, and just to your fan base, we can all see it. It's time to move on from Matt Eberflus. You had an extra year this year. Again, I think it was pretty much 50-50, the consensus on Eberflus. But Poles wanted to stick with him. That's fine. He's clearly not it anymore. And you and I, we wanted to announce tomorrow morning. That's not going to happen. That's just not, unfortunately, how this organization works. But on the way out after that last game of the season, just meet him on the field and be like, thank you. Sorry it didn't work out. Just it's time to move on.
So the way this needs to work is it needs to happen now. It needs to happen tomorrow morning. You need to get the new guy in the chair. Game plan. Like, he needs the full week at his disposal to figure out what the hell he's doing. So that probably means the Bears will wait till Wednesday to fire somebody. And they'll be completely unprepared again next week. Like, that feels like the Bears thing to do historically.
Yeah, problem is there's no precedent of anything that the Bears do historically where we're like, oh yeah, this usually works out for us. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because again, we're playing our rivals next week who it seems no matter who they throw out at quarterback or their head coach, like they just keep chugging along and they're the complete opposite of us when it comes to, our football team and how things are run over there. And it's frustrating. When Ryan Poles was hired, he talked about winning back the North. We all ate that up. And then here we are, X amount of years later. And I mean, the spread could have been Packers 16.5, and I'd still be taking Green Bay. And it's just not where I want to be right now.
We've got Bears Bunch calling for us to all boycott the game against the Packers next week. And then we have Facebook user in here saying he feels like the players may have played this game with the intention of wanting a new staff. The players are done with this. I mean, I think these players are 100% done with this.
I completely agree.
I don't know that they played with the intention just because they have money on the line. Only so many guys are set for life at this point. Like, I don't think Tyreek Stevenson was trying to play badly when he's, been benched already and is going to be up for contract extension talks next year. And there's money on the line for these guys. So I do think they give their all, but it's just how internally motivated are they throughout the whole week, throughout the whole game to really do that. I think it's more subconscious than anything that you're putting forward of saying we are actively doing this.
I'm almost scared to see what these radio spots are going to sound like this week. Because we talked about it, you and I, like whether it's DJ Moore and his weekly spots or Cole Kmet, they're slowly, they're not even hiding the fact, that things aren't well in the locker room. I'm very curious to see this week, are they coached to say, hey, let's lay off the coach right now. Don't contribute to that outside noise. Or do they feel even more free? Like, are they at the point now where they're not afraid of what, punishments might come down because they don't think this staff is going to be here much longer anyway?
Yeah.
Again, we talked about body language. The body language I saw on that field today was just not it. Like, not one.
No skin in the game. It knows it's done, and it's like, okay, no, get someone with some skin in the game in there. And I think Joey makes a good point here, saying along with the coaching, there's a major issue with the thought process, believing this O-line. A clear question mark going into the year was going to be okay because they have weapons and generational talent. So, I mean, I was sitting here going, I think this O-line is serviceable. I think you have enough here in theory. I agree with Joey. I wanted more in the draft. I like Karan Amagaji. I wanted a guy who was ready to play this year. And I thought they had the ability to do that, whether that was with the Amagaji pick or the Torrey Taylor pick. And I wanted another free agent in there, like a real free. Like Ryan Bates is not real to me. He wasn't real to me when they got him. Coleman Shelton, I think that I'm hanging on to my prior with him too much because I almost feel like I had Stockholm syndrome over the center position for the Bears. And I was like, finally, they got a guy who at least started in the NFL for a playoff team. This has to be better. And it really hasn't been. So I agree with you to some extent. This O-line needed to be better, but I did think there's enough that when I look around at other teams around the league, I see worse talent O-lines than this doing much, much better than they are. And I don't know, so maybe I'm defending Poles a little too much with that because I do agree with you when you say former O-lineman apparently can't evaluate O-line like we thought. It kind of feels you're 3 years in, you still haven't figured. No one's developed on the O-line, it feels like, in 3 years. No one's really gotten better. And that's an indictment on Chris Morgan to me, but that Chris Morgan's the guy that you kept around for this staff. And I don't know. I think Poles almost thinks he can be a bit of a magician with the O-line and thinks he can see stuff that others can't, which maybe he does recognize things others don't, but he needs to put the correct weight on it. And I don't think he's weighted that correctly so far as GM.
Yeah, it's just, we know I don't want to repeat myself from the last episode, but it's like when it comes to the offensive line, I almost wonder if he has some sort of false confidence because he had played the position before.
Mm-hmm.
And he just feels like he trusts his own instinct, and they haven't. He's like, I'll find the big value guy. I know what to look for, and it's probably the number one reason this season has gone the way it's gone. That offensive line. It's just it's clearly didn't work. It was the biggest question mark coming into this year, and we were told that the staff was much higher on the offensive line than the fans were. And, Ryan Poles had a fantastic, appearance on Hard Knocks where he won a lot of us over. And so, we went back to kind of just trusting that, hey, the offensive line doesn't have to be great. Just, be close to league average. We have a generational quarterback. We have 3 all-pro potential wide receivers. We have one of the 10 best tight ends in the league. As long as the offensive line's even average, those guys will make the plays.
As long as you can do something to get first reads open ever. Like, it feels like that's the crutch in all this, or the crux in all this is like, no, your O-line won't always be able to hold up 3 seconds, but you need plays that aren't going to take that. It doesn't feel like there are many plays that are quick hitting, that are, and I'm not just talking screens here. Like, I'm talking about guys who, like, you see Romo Dunze isolated on the outside of man coverage and make a check for it. That's the call. He can beat that man. It's that simple. And it doesn't feel like anything is simplified within this.
And it's I don't know. It's forced. Everything looks forced. Even, I'm glad they finally gave the ball to Cole Kmet the second half today, but even then we went to him 3 straight times. It's just like,
well, and from the O-line aspect, like I was talking with my friend Danny Meehan after the game about this, and it was like, I'm sure when Kyle Shanahan got to San Francisco, that first training camp was just a shit ton of wide zone variants and play action reps off of it. And that's what they focused on. Obviously, they had a bit more installed than that on other things, but like, they hammered that stuff. Because Kyle Shanahan said, I just signed a 6-year deal, making a ton of money. I'm safe here, and we're building this right from the ground up. And anytime someone comes into our system, they're going to start from the bottom and work their way up. Waldron's kind of had the opposite here. I don't want to be making excuses for him, but I think you almost need that ground up ability to get your basics down, to find your identity, your bread and butter plays, like what it is that you do. It's really hard to install a full playbook and find what it is that you do. I think Matt Nagy had some of this too, where like he wanted immediate results, and they never built an identity from the ground up, which I don't know if that's an excuse for Waldron. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe advice for the next guy of like what we're looking for, what we want to do. But to me, that's a strong thing here of like, you need to know what you can do run blocking and what you can build in the pass game off of it. And I don't think this team has any clue on that front.
We were 4-2. That's what I don't get. Like 4-2, and we look like a team that wasn't great, but we weren't one of the poor teams in the NFL anymore. We were beating up on the worst teams in the NFL. So like that in itself was progress.
Cardinals just won another game. They could have been like that. They felt like that type of team. Frisky, maybe might make the playoffs, but like isn't there yet.
Right. And then we have a bye week, and all of a sudden, like I don't even recognize this team anymore. Like, it's incredible to me, like how awful of a bye week that must have been, because not only did nothing improve, I can't think of anything that did. Everything has regressed. And how does the message get that lost in a month? In 3 weeks' time? A team went like, hey, we might have an outside shot at contending for this division. Let's just keep continuing on beating up on the easy part of our schedule. To now, 3 losses in a row. And quite honestly, if we take a look at that schedule, I don't know where that next win is coming from. It's going to be one of those where I don't think we're going to be favored in any of the games. It's going to be a game that we're going to have to basically steal from another team. And that team that I saw today at home against the 2-7 New England Patriots, and we scored 3 points. I don't know. There's no easy fix. Like, the only way to fix this is cleaning house. And again, it's one thing if you're 16 games in and there's only 2 weeks left. Sure, you can do that. But half the season's still in front of us. And so that's the worst part of all this at this point to me. It's just, it looks hopeless. And it's not one, hey, let's just fire the offensive coordinator. Let's continue to let this defense, carry us. No, because it's not just the offensive coordinator. As you said, it's the coaching. It's the offensive line, the offensive play calls. It's a head coach that none of us thinks is a good head coach.
It's the feel everyone gets in the room when Eberflus says a word. Like, I get the feeling that everyone tunes him out the second he starts talking.
Again, nice guy. I'm rooting for him as an individual, but you're in way over your head.
Well, right? And I don't think this was the case last year. I don't think this was the case 2 years ago. You look at this team. I think Eberflus had a fine time molding young men, developing young players, being like, hey, straight out of college, you're 22 to 25 years old. We're turning you into what we need you to be. But there are a lot of veterans on this team now. Veterans want to be put in the positions that they know are best for them to win and for them to get another contract. And I don't think Eberflus plays ball like that very well. I think Eberflus wants guys to be what he needs them to be. And that makes some of the free agent additions that they really added this past year a little tougher to fit into boxes, a little tougher to make happy, because they might be doing stuff that they don't like as much, or that they might be, maybe that sounds a little too diva. I'm not trying to make it that diva, but like, I think it's little things, how much their input is being taken into account in game planning. And that's stuff that I don't think Eberflus has a long history of. You look at his defenses in Indy. He built those from the ground. Like, those were his guys that he coached up. I'm not sure that we have completely the same thing here with a Kevin Byard, a Gerald Everett, a Keenan Allen, a DeAndre Carter coming in. Ryan Bates came in this offseason. Coleman Shelton came in. Matt Pryor. Like, there's a lot of new faces here, and they might not exactly be fitting into that culture that Eberflus envisions of, we're going to mold these guys into what we need them to be.
I can see that. But again, it's like, the defense hasn't played awful, right? Like, I know what you're talking about, but like 19 points today, it was 21 the week before. We had that string of, so many games where we allowed less than 21 points. It's just like, it might be one of those things where even if the defense plays okay, which it kind of has been, when the guy in charge is so inept at half of the football field, like that offensive, there's just nothing. And now you're looking at your team leaders, a guy like DJ Moore, maybe a Cole Kmet. Like, it doesn't look like they respect Eberflus. And, if we heard about like these captains meetings that are going on, like these players' captains meetings, well, maybe they're talking to each other. And so that's why it's just Eberflus, like, thank you. Like, he was a good transition coach, I guess. He kept us competitive in games that we had no business winning when we're, just winning a couple games a year. But we're not at that spot anymore. We're not. We have we thought the talent in place. We have the young players in place. This year, we're supposed to win 8 to 10 games. We're supposed to get to the playoffs, and he's not that guy anymore. Like, thank you for that. Being bad enough to get us high draft picks early and at least competing. It was nice not being blown out every single week. But go back, be an elite defensive coordinator somewhere. You can win a Super Bowl with Matt Eberflus as your defensive coordinator. I don't even know if you can make the playoffs with a Matt Eberflus as your head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of there, and I gotta say, I mean, I'm probably not as high on him as a DC as you are even. I think I think from everything I've heard, he's a good talent evaluator, and he's good at developing players. Like, so those are two very valuable things, right? Especially if you're going to be investing more like mid to late round draft picks on defense and more your money on offense, like, and your premier picks on offense. I think he's an ideal guy to have there because he's going to get more out of players for less. But especially as a head coach, he's going to want more investment on the defensive side. And you're not talking about value anymore. Like, this Bears defense is not a value defense. There's a lot of money and a lot of premier picks over there, and they've been good. But I can't help but think if Jonathan Gannon down in Arizona had this much defensive talent, they would be utterly dominant. You know, like, I mean, it's not to say the defense isn't good, because I think they've been good. They've been solid. But I think this level of talent on this defense has the potential to be great. And I don't think they've really sniffed that except for one game this year. You're on mute, Sonny.
If he's not a good defensive coordinator, like, that's even, where are we then?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's good enough. Like, he's a good D coordinator, but he's not a Spagnuolo. He's not a Jonathan Gannon. He's not like a Brian Flores, like a Vic Fangio. Those guys are in a different tier than Eberflus in my mind.
Mm-hmm. But again, you know, it's like, then just how bad of a misfire was this by Ryan Poles?
I mean, I thought, you know, I've said before, I'm not afraid of it. He was my coach for that cycle. The options were him, Kellen Moore, Brian Dable. I think Kevin O'Connell was in that cycle, but I don't think the Bears interviewed him. And the Bears' other options were, I think, Dan Quinn and Jim Caldwell. It was like, I could kind of get behind Caldwell because it was like, at least you got the quarterback aspect there for Fields.
Yeah.
But to me, Eberflus seemed like the guy who's going to, that's your draft and develop coach. Like, that made sense to me at the time. And like you said, I think that time has just passed. They kind of got accelerated by getting Caleb Williams on him faster than they thought it would. But it's going down the drain right now. Like, the thing is spinning off the wheel, and it's going wild. Like, this locker room, you cannot keep going like this. It's just, like I said last week's show, there is a stink of losing in Hallis Hall, and something needs to be done to get rid of that stink in my mind. And I think doing that in season sends a lot louder message to the locker room, to the world, to anyone out there and seeing and hearing it, that we are not putting up with this stink anymore. And I want to see the McCaskies do that. I want to see Kevin Warren do that. I want to see Ryan Poles do that, because that stink is hard to rub off. It's hard to get rid of. The Cleveland Browns did it somehow, and then they actually got themselves back in more stink. But like, it can be done. It takes money and some time. Those are two things that the Bears have been generous with time, not generous on the money aspect. Like, you know, if it's, I feel like they always go for value hires at GM and coach. Like, I feel like that's where we're at. They don't want to pay two guys at once. So here we are. I want to get rid of that stink. I think the best way to do it right now is to send that message that what's happening is not acceptable right now. It doesn't mean the next guy who steps in those shoes is going to take the spot for good, but it's going to give him a shot at least. And you're going to see players, I think, be revived by it, be a little freed by it, and also understand they're willing to get rid of people. I need to start performing.
I mean, because you're looking at there's a script out there where the Packers win 42-10 next week. And that's me being generous that we scored a touchdown.
I mean, if they played like they did today, they might put 50 on us.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, it's just two teams heading in complete opposite directions. And you're talking about, you know, your rival. And it's not like Matt LaFleur is going to take his foot off the pedal. Anytime the Packers have a chance to, you know, embarrass us, they're going to jump on it. And then what's that postgame going to sound like? It's at least if Ryan makes a couple moves, whatever it might be, just do something, and we get our butts kicked next week. At least you tried something. And maybe I'm justifying it in my head. But if you don't do anything, and I'm not even sure if I'd be okay with Shane Waldron's just not calling plays anymore, but he's still our offensive coordinator. I don't know if I'm even satisfied with that answer. I think bare minimum you got to make a change at the offensive coordinator.
To me, it's not even a play calling problem. It's a game planning problem. It's understanding your personnel and your opponent problem and how they're going to attack you and how to mitigate that. So to me, the play calling isn't as much the issue at hand as Waldron's still going to have the most input on the game plan of anyone in the room. And I am blown away how you botched that hire this badly. You had Cliff in the room, Cliff Kingsbury. You had Clint Kubiak. You had Zach Robinson. You interviewed all these guys, and you walked away from that saying Shane Waldron is the most convincing guy. That is just mind blowing to me right now after seeing his offense for 10 weeks or nine games here.
But that's the worst part of it, right? It's like, how much faith are you going to have the next hire is going to be any better?
Not a ton.
If you were this off on both the offensive coordinator and, let's be honest, the head coach, what have you shown me in the past? Again, granted, you made one of the greatest NFL trades of all time. Okay. And let's be honest, that's built him a lot of leeway with Bears fans. But at some point, he's got to follow that up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm sitting here trying to think of what his best. I mean, Caleb, he was supposed to be the number one pick. It's not like he went and got he got the guy who everyone projected to be the number one pick at the number one spot. But I'm sitting here trying to think what other move has he made, which has been
Montez Sweat trade, maybe. I mean,
sure,
that's probably it. I mean, you had to overpay him, but I still love Montez Sweat. Don't take it as a knock on Montez Sweat. He's probably not best defensive player in the league type money, which is what he got. But he's a really good football player, and I think he's going to age really well. So I'm fine with the deal. But that's not an awe-inspiring move to me either.
Mm-hmm. And Crooked Commit says, we should have known we were in trouble when JSN said good luck with Shane. Yeah, I think a lot of us Bears fans who saw that were coping. The hints were there, but we justified it in our own heads.
The largest hints were just Seahawks fans saying, sayonara, good luck.
We don't like this guy at all.
Yeah, I had a very well-informed Seahawks podcaster. I believe that he was from the Seahawkers pod. His name was Adam Emmert. Come on my other podcast before the season to talk Seahawks. And in that interview, I asked him about Shane Waldron and what his thoughts were. And it was he said in the nicest possible way that the guy drove him crazy.
Well, he still has that skill.
Hey, you take the governor or Pete Carroll off him. Evidently, it gets tenfold worse. None of us imagined it being like this.
Yeah, no, this is, again, what we're seeing play out is the absolute worst case scenario involved. It's not only is the team bad, but the leadership is bad. The player leadership seems to be checking out. And that prized possession, the Caleb Williams, the guy who the Bears fans have never had before, a guy who's supposed to be generational. Again, in my opinion, sure, he struggled his first two games of the season, but games 3, 4, and 5, you saw progression. You saw him getting better. Now, I mean, we were running the numbers earlier in the year. Caleb just has to average 180 yards per game, and he'll break this record by game 15. I'm curious what that update is now.
Oh, he still might already he's still well on pace to break the rookie record.
Well, I'm sure he's going to. But I'm just saying, those numbers aren't, as easy as they sounded originally. This is something.
No,
a lot of us were like, maybe he's going to break by half the season.
Yeah, I mean it's gone way downhill, really fast, and like you mentioned, I really want to know what happened in the bye week. I feel like I'm like gossip girl over here. Like, I gotta know. But like, something happened. Something happened that changed stuff for this team. And I don't know what it is, but like, I don't know if I've ever seen a team turn this quickly, this ugly.
Is there anything you're optimistic about for the remainder of the season?
You're gonna have to ask me in a week because I'm coming up empty right now.
Yeah.
Like there's very little that I really am excited about going forward with this team. I mean, I'm excited to see Darnell Wright get back on the field. Keep seeing his development. I'm excited about Javon Dexter's development, and I mean, really, I want to see Rome Odunze keep getting better.
I think that's the only answer I could have thought of because I do think he had a drop today, I think, but
I want to see Caleb grow, but I can't trust that. So I can't trust any of the offensive development.
I'm not optimistic about it.
Waldron
right?
gives me a reason to trust it. Like I have no reasons to trust any of it.
But definitely tune in here on Bears on Tap, even if you're not watching the game.
Hey, I mean, we're gonna be here breaking down everything and looking at that development and talking about, the opponent coming up and the game plan coming up and doing our best to try to make it all make sense. I think that's the whole point of this. When stuff goes this bad, it's trying to make it make sense. And I hope we've done a little bit of that on the show tonight. I think we did talking about, the offensive line issues and why the offense looks so disjointed all the time and what we think is a lot of Waldron, some Caleb, but and some O-line does go into it and where that all roots back to, how you fix that. Like I think that's what we're trying to get to with this show tonight.
And just remember, Bears on Tap is a lot cheaper than therapy.
It is.
We
don't even charge.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to be positive about this. It looks like it's going to be a rough season, certainly. But yeah, Q, myself, Ron, we're gonna, we're not going anywhere. Unfortunately, we still watch every single game. We watch as many snaps as we can because we got to figure this out. Because I still like a lot of the individual pieces on this team. And, maybe that's kind of where the focus is going to shift even on the show moving forward. Like, hey, I really like what I saw from Rome Odunze in that second half today, or at least Caleb is, making throws that he was missing a couple of weeks back. But I don't know. It's just one of those, I need Ryan Poles. He's got to help us out at some point because I'm actually very curious to see when I wake up in the morning tomorrow to see if I get that text saying, hey, this was done or that was done. Because if there isn't, I mean, you're talking about a fan base that's about to be alienated real quick if we're not already there. Again, I had a dozen friends at the game today, and they said it got the loudest it got. The loudest it got was when the fire Fluce chants. That's not a good sign.
No, it's not. I mean, the national media is about to take hold of this thing.
Yeah.
We saw it during the game. We saw multiple national media accounts tweeting about the coaching staff in Chicago, which means there's probably, if not action coming soon, at least like the thought of action coming soon. Because usually when the national media kicks in, that's when the McCaskies start to act. But, Sunny, I think that wraps this up for us. What do you say? What was that?
Yeah, mercifully, yes.
Yeah, mercifully. What do you say we get out of here with a sorrowful bear down?
Again, we're going to be here week in and week out. Bear down, Q.
Bear down, guys.